Hello, my name is Holly Priestley. I am the host of the Deliberate Living podcast, mom to Mona Lisa, and homeowner of this beautiful piece of metal. Her name is Eloise Van Gogh, and she is a 1997 Ford E350. She has a fiberglass high top and an extended body, so she's a big girl. And Lisa and I have been living in her full-time since January 1st of 2019. So at the time of this recording, it has been a year and 9 months that we have been calling her home. And when I first started converting her, I did some YouTube videos about the process and about the decisions that I was making and the hows and the whys and all of that, and I never ended up doing a van tour video. When I was done with the conversion, I moved in right away and then started traveling, and so I did some videos of the traveling aspect of it, but again, never felt comfortable doing an actual van tour video because I never felt like it was done. There were always things that I wanted to change or things that I wanted to add, or things that hadn't really found a home yet, and so the van tour never happened. And I figure now is as good a time as any, and so in this video I will explain how we live in a van and travel full-time, so please come along. The main premise for the majority of the decisions that I made were very budget-based. A lot of it was financial budget, but it was also time budget and energy budget and skills budget. I ended up having to pay for everything in cash as I did the purchasing process as well as the building out process. And so I bought the van half converted at 97,000 miles. Again, it's a 1997 Ford E350 club wagon. I bought it for $6,000. And since then, with all of the upgrades to make it a home and then some of the mechanical issues, I'm probably in it for somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000, which really isn't that much compared to some other van builds, but also it's quite a bit compared to some other van builds. So if you're looking to buy a van and build it out on a budget, you can absolutely do that and make it a comfortable place to live. I bought the van with the sink stove cabinet and the benches in it. Everything else I have done by hand with the help of my dad and a few other very wonderful friends who I'm incredibly grateful for. I definitely used the University of YouTube a lot and the resources of my friends who knew more about building anything than I did. But with a little bit of experience, a lot of help, and a lot of YouTube, I've been able to handle pretty much everything that has come my way with this build and with living out of a van in the first place. My main goals for the van were to make it functional but also really comfortable. I'm an introvert, I am a homebody, I spend a lot of time in my van, and when I bought it, it was very dark inside. It had a lot of dark fabric and dark flooring. It had a bench seat behind the cab area, and there were just a lot of things that I wanted to brighten up with it. So things like adding fabric. This is just fabric that I glued to the felt that was already here. That made a big difference for me. I kept the natural light wood and white feel for most of the additions that I've done to it since then. So we're gonna start off with the cab. The cab is always in some random state of mess, but I keep my extra 6-gallon water jug up here in the passenger seat. I've also mostly stashed my my solar shower in here, and I will show you later how that works. I've also got random bits and bobs, and on the dash itself we have some reusable masks because that is the year that we're in. I've also got a few nature finds that I like to keep with me on the road. Some feathers, a nice skull, some pretty rocks, a sand dollar, and they live on my dash. I also have recently invested in a phone holder. I've gotten, a year and 9 months into this, might as well finally get a phone holder so that my phone doesn't live in the mess that is the middle console. This is my Bluetooth system because my radio, as you can see, dusty as it is, does not have a tape deck or a CD drive or an auxiliary port. It is just the radio. So I have the Bluetooth, and yeah, it's generally pretty dusty. I also keep oil underneath my driver's seat. My passenger seat and my driver's seat do not pivot. I did want to install captain's chairs that pivoted, and I went to a junkyard in Arizona to find one, and I found a pivoting chair, and I took it off and brought it home and took off my passenger seat and the base and everything, and then found out that the base hole drill holes didn't line up with what I already had in the van, and also didn't have the tools handy to drill brand new holes. So both my passenger seat and my driver's seat are stationary, unfortunately, so it doesn't provide any extra seating for my living space. One of my favorite parts of my cab is actually my visors, which I don't think anyone has ever said before, but it's true for me because I use them to keep cards and stickers and photos, and again, more nature finds. But I really like having cards and notes from friends and family with me all the time, especially while I'm driving, because it just reminds me that people love me, even if I'm in the middle of a highway somewhere. So the next part is directly behind the cab, everything that separates the cab from the rest of the living space. I have an old shower curtain from my previous apartment here, just a tension rod shower curtain that rests on the I-beams on either side of the van that are secured to the fiberglass high top. And on the shower curtain, I have these purple blackout curtains. When I was moving into the van, a friend of mine was getting rid of them, didn't want them for her house anymore. And as you can see, they're really quite long. So I glued them up so that they would perfectly fit the van and keep as much light and privacy as I could. On the sides, I usually squish them into the seatbelt holder so that I can follow the curve of the van on either side. And the shower curtain is basically at the same height that my attic starts at. So while it's not a 100% light-proof system, it does a very good job of keeping as much light inside the van when I need it and outside the van when I don't. Also on the shower curtain, we have this shoe rack. I was living in the van for almost a full year with all of my shoes just kind of piled on my passenger seat floor, since I never had passengers there anyway, and at the time I didn't have the extra 6-gallon water jug. Sometime last fall, I decided that that wasn't going to work and I needed to get everything a little bit more organized. And again, that's part of the reason I haven't done a van tour until now, is because everything was kind of in motion all of the time. But I got this shoe holder and I cut it off so that it comes down just to above my cooler, and I use it obviously for shoes, but also for other random bits and bobs. And this one tiny piece of organization has actually done a lot for my sanity and for the overall organization of the van. On the passenger side of the van, you can see that I have some of these hooks up here on the shower curtain that I use to hold a bag of my shower stuff, my bathroom stuff, so that it's easy to grab and go, whether I'm doing a shower just outside on my patio with that solar shower, or whether I'm taking it into a gym or a rec center or a friend's house or a truck stop to take a shower there. I also have another one of my reusable masks back here. I've got some necklaces, some headbands, and my favorite jean jacket. This also holds up my bug netting, and my bug netting is just some white mesh that my friend Stephanie, the Vanlife Chronicles, gave to me when she upgraded her bug net system. And my bug netting is just squished into the plastic liner that runs along the edge of the door that goes into the window. Behind the curtain and behind all of the hooks, I do have a Seatback storage solution on this chair. This particular solution was originally designed for a seat that had a headrest so that it would rest easily on the headrest. My seats do not have those, so I've had to rig it a little bit with some extra rope and carabiners to get it to stay. This particular piece of organizational equipment holds a lot of my bathroom stuff, some period things, denture cleaner for my Invisalign retainers, etc. My yoga mat also lives on the floor underneath this chair most of the time. It's easy to move, easy to grab when I decide I need to do a little bit of yoga. And underneath the passenger seat I also have snow chains for my van and jumper cables, which is very important. You should always have those on hand. And above the shower curtain rod is what I call my attic. You can see that it's held in here by a white netting material. This is not exactly the same stuff that I'm using for my bug net. It's got a wider mesh on it, but this is being held up with two little hooks up on the ceiling so I can easily take it off when I need to and I need to access these boxes. In the attic, I keep my hot water bottle, which comes in handy especially when it's cold. I keep an entire bag of yarn because I am a knitter. This bin has most of my craft stuff in it. I also stack some blankets on top of here and my towel. This fabric bin holds some of my outdoor gear. A lot of it is actually in the benches, but I'll show you that later. This cardboard box holds a lot of my beanies and cold weather things. I've also got my puffy jacket on top of it, and behind all of this is a little bit more cold weather stuff, like my snow boots and things are way in the back. And so this netting, I just nailed in with these little tiny nails. You can see it's popped out in a few places. And then I've got two little hooks on either side. I can pop the net back up when I'm done using it, and that keeps everything in while I'm driving down bumpy roads. Alright, so directly behind my driver's seat and next to my shoe rack, I have my next section of the van. In front of the cooler, I have a Mr. Buddy heater that I use in the wintertime. I try not to use it too much because Mr. Buddy heaters are propane heaters and they do create a lot of condensation. So I don't use it a ton, but I do have it. And after last winter, I actually got it hooked up to my main propane tank that lives underneath my sink, which I'll show you in a minute, so that I don't have to carry those little like green 1-pounder tanks around anymore. Wedging that into place between my driver's seat is my 35-liter Yeti cooler. This was an upgrade for me at the end of last summer. One of the reasons I can get away with having a cooler and not a fridge is because my refrigeration needs are really minimal. I also don't buy ice very often because I find ice to be very cumbersome and annoying. It takes up a lot of space in what is already a very small cooler, and when it melts then there's water everywhere and anything that gets in it is pretty ruined from being waterlogged, and it's just a lot. So my solution for it is to just prop open the lid like that and leave it open all night long, and then the cool air comes in, and in the morning during the day I leave it closed, and that keeps enough of the cool air in. Again, this is not going to work for everybody, but it does work for me because I'm a vegetarian and I don't keep a lot of eggs or dairy on hand. I don't eat meat, so I don't need to keep anything like terribly cold. Behind the cooler is other various food storage. You'll see all of these silver bits. These are all custom cut Reflectix with black fabric on the outside facing side for each and every one of my windows. The MO for my whole build was just doing it on a budget, basically. So this plastic drawer set lived with me in my previous apartment, and I decided to bring it into the van with me because I already owned it. So above the area where the cooler lives and the heater lives and all of that is my produce basket, which you can tell I made myself with some of the remnants of the netting that I use for my attic and for my closet, which I will get to later in the video. I made this for myself just a few months ago after realizing I was keeping more food on hand than could really fit in the cooler. And above that is the beginning of a shelf that my friend Jared helped me make that runs the entire length of the van. This is one of my most prized pieces of the van. When we were just wrapping up converting the van, I knew I was going to need some shelving on this wall. The other wall was going to be full net, full closet, but I knew I needed some shelving for this side of the van. And I went to my friend Jared with an idea of basically just like some really simple boxes that we could nail into the studs that we created on the wall. Being an arborist and a woodworker and a crafter and a creator, furniture maker, etc., knew that this was a terrible idea and it wasn't going to be secure enough or big enough. And so he helped me design this huge shelf system that runs from here, just the beginning of my attic, all the way to the entire back of the van. The front third of the shelf holds some drink things and some of my teas. I have a lot of teas and a growing collection of koozies. The middle third, which is actually 2 layers of shelf. I did not build this shelf with this in mind, but this is perfect for dispensing paper towels out of. Behind the paper towels right now are dog treats and vinegar and more teas. Like I said, I'm really big on tea. Beneath those, some more teas. Some mugs, some more tea, some spices, etc. Most of these are spices, and then some like junk drawer type stuff, and then the battery pack for my fairy lights. The final third of the shelf holds a lot of incense and a lot of books and journals and things. The shoebox that's in the back holds a lot of correspondence type stuff. This knitted flag garland that runs along the length of the shelf is something I knit a very long time ago when I had an office job and wanted something to spice up my cubicle. And so of course it came into the van with me. Currently I've got a mala made by my friend Amber. This moves about the cabin quite a bit. You can see underneath here I've got a few electrical components and wirings. The gray box in the back is my battery monitor, and the black box in the middle / front is my signal booster for my WeBoost. I opted for open shelving for 2 main reasons. One, I'm a very out of sight, out of mind kind of person, so I knew that if I had cabinets where everything was covered up, I would forget what I owned, and then what is the point of owning it? Also, leaving the shelving open and not putting doors on it allows your eye to kind of go all the way through the shelving to the back, and it makes the van look a little bit bigger. When I bought the van, this cabinet was already installed and these benches were already installed. So I didn't do any of this work myself. This cabinet is a Dometic cabinet. It's got the sink and the stove combination, and it used to have a flip top that would protect it and give another flat surface. That flip top was glass, and so it broke pretty right away within the first 2 months of living in the van, which was a big bummer and a huge mess and a heck of a time to clean up. I talk about it in one of my podcast episodes, the one titled The 4 Biggest Mistakes That I Made. The stove is propane. My propane is an 11-pound mini tank that lives underneath in this cabinet here. It's got 2 switches on this side for a water pump and for my overhead lights. The faucet comes up just like that, although I never use it, again, because the water system in this van is not functional right now, which is fine for me, but is there should I ever want to fix it. These are the doors for the cabinet. In the first one that is directly underneath the sink, you can see I have a lot of plastic bags in here. I use those for my trash and a few other random things that I think normally go under a sink in just about any house. And here is my propane tank. It is V-small. The water pump back there is not currently functioning, and so I actually do have a replacement, although I have not input it yet because I don't need it, but it's there for when I'm ready. The back cabinet here holds my pots and pans. Underneath is my very important honey and kettle situation because, again, I am a huge tea drinker. The drawer holds my silverware and a lot of junk stuff. On the passenger side of the van is my closet. The closet originally ran from the back of the passenger seat all the way to the end of the van over there. Again, I decided to go with this netting material. It is held up again by these tiny white hooks, and the bottom is glued to the other side of the I-beams that support everything else in the van. And you can see within my closet system, I do have packing cubes in addition to just free-floating clothes, and they're organized by type of clothes. I know it probably doesn't look organized to anybody but me. The shelf here in the back I just added a few weeks ago maybe, because I needed some more space for some of my books, my camera. Most of these things lived on my bed previously because I did not have enough shelf space for them in the massive shelf that I have on the other side of the van. And so this was actually kind of a mental dilemma for me, whether I should add a new shelf or just get rid of stuff. Like, maybe if I don't have enough space for everything in the shelf I do have, maybe I have too much stuff. But ultimately I decided that my clothes could be rearranged and I could sacrifice the closet space for this very useful shelf. I'm super happy with it. No regrets so far, and obviously there's still plenty of space on it for me to move even more of the things that always live on my bed up to the shelf. Let's talk about the bed setup a little bit. The bed is a very fat L shape. The cushions on top are in multiple pieces so that the bed can be taken apart and put into a table. When I first bought the van, the table went the whole length of the van, like all the way to the back doors, which is great, and it's awesome to have such a big table in a small space. You can have more people sitting around it. But I found, because I have so many things that live on top of the bed, that I was never actually using the table because the stuff that lived on the bed didn't have anywhere to go. So I have found a few solutions to this that might be helpful for somebody else in a van or considering moving into a van or any small space. One thing I did was cut the table in half. It had two legs that supported the whole rectangle of the table, and I just cut it in half so that now the front half uses one leg and the back half uses the other leg. I also built that shelf so that some of the books and things that collected on the bed would have someplace else to go off of the bed, giving all of us more space and also a cleaner appearance, which is really important for mental health and sanity. The next thing I did was upgrade my bedding situation. This is another recent upgrade that I am completely stoked about. This is a pillow blanket made by the company Voided. My friend Jessie designed these pillow blankets because she had the exact same problem when she was living in her first van, that the bedding takes up so much space and so much time. And so this pillow unzips and unfolds into a full-size blanket. I have two of them in addition to other blankets and other pillows, because I do find that I live and travel in areas that sometimes get cold, and having multiple blankets is great. So these blankets are made out of a recycled plastic material. They are super waterproof, stain-proof, stain-resistant, water-resistant, dog hair resistant, which is really important. You can just shake them out. They're very durable. They can be outside blankets or inside blankets. They wash very well. There is just so much that I love about these as far as cleaning up my own house and keeping everything a little bit more tidy for me. If you're interested in learning more about these blankets, I will absolutely have a link in the description, and you can get a 20% off coupon code if you're interested in trying them out for yourself. Like I said, I'm completely in love with them, and I will talk about them all day long. So between upgrading my bedding situation and adding another shelf and just generally trying to keep things a little bit more tidy, I've been able to make even better use of my bed / table / office / dining room space. I've been using since the beginning. I've also got my 1-gallon container, some baby wipes, a solar battery generator charger, a box that was formerly baby wipes but is now just things that need to go to the thrift store, a mosquito candle, etc. This is the first foot. The other foot is back here underneath my back door panels. The back door needs a repair, that's why those are off right now. With the table at this half size, I can still fit a ton of people in my U-shaped seating all the way around. And my pillows and bedding become extra back support depending on which part of the van you happen to be seated in and working from. And if I ever need to, I can put up the back half of the table as well. Now underneath the benches are additional storage solutions, so I'm going to show you those now. The front compartment that Lisa usually lays on actually holds her dog food and some of her bandanas and things. It's also currently got my hiking boots in it and a backpack full of my climbing gear. It's also got her backpacking backpack, her food bowl. The second piece of the passenger side holds more outdoor gear for me, my backpacking backpack, toolbox, etc. The other side that's next to my cabinet holds my battery compartment in the back and a few other important things. This is the back doors of the van. I have installed a ladder to the back door that gives me access to the roof where my solar panel is and my vent fan. I also have the antenna for my WeBoost. Just inside the constantly dirty back doors, I have access to my tools and to my battery compartment and my inverter and all of that. My inverter is a modified sine wave inverter. It was part of the van when I bought it, so I did not have to make the decision to get that. I did recently upgrade to a brand new Battleborn lithium battery system. I previously had 2 deep cycles in here that were definitely kind of an octopus to look at. The one lithium battery has been a complete game changer for me and for my electrical needs. Just on the other side of the electrical cabinet is my fuse box. My lithium battery charges off of a 100-watt solar panel. It is also hooked up to my alternator so that when I'm driving, it's charging, and I can plug it into shore power, as I mentioned earlier. The deep cycle batteries that I had in here previously, again, were in the van when I bought it, so they were already a few years old, and then I had been living in the van for over a year and a half by the time I replaced it, and they were just getting to be pretty unreliable. They wouldn't charge very well, and they wouldn't hold a charge pretty much at all. So when I was living in Montana in the spring when it was rainy and gray, I was having a very hard time keeping my laptop charged so I could do work, or keeping my phone charged so I could do work. And it just became a huge stressor for me. So upgrading to the lithium battery was a great choice for me. It wasn't cheap. The battery by itself, I think, is $950, depending on which brand you go with. And it's more than enough power right now to charge everything that I need. The best part is that I'm able to offer any extra electricity to my friends, and they can come and use all of my outlets and charge all of their things as well. One of the first things I did when I bought the van was replace the previous vent that was literally just like a hole with some mesh over it with this Maxxair Fan. I had done some research, and based on what I learned, this was the best fan for having a dog in a van. This model also comes with a remote that at first I thought was going to be indulgent and dumb and I wasn't going to need it, but the remote actually is very nice when you're laying in bed and don't want to have to get up to turn the thing off. So the solar shower that I showed you earlier heats up water on its own, and sometimes if it's not sunny enough, I will heat up water in my kettle to give it just a little bit of warmth so it's comfortable on my head while I wash my hair. I pretty much just use this to wash my hair when I'm out in the woods. I use baby wipes for the rest of my body, and I use one of those little hooks that I have hanging on the shower curtain that holds up the curtain behind the cab, and I either link it through to this part on this window, or I will occasionally put it on the ladder on the back of the van. I use a big silver bowl to catch the water and the product and my hair in. When I'm out in the woods showering, I use a combination of Dr. Bronner's and baking soda for my shampoo, and I use apple cider vinegar for conditioner, and then I also have a leave-in conditioner. Living in a van with hair as long as mine is can definitely be a challenge, and I wouldn't recommend it for most people, to be honest. I definitely reconsider having long hair on a pretty regular basis, especially when I have to wash it, because it can be a lot to handle. The video description will have links to everything that I can possibly find links for. I will also have a resource on my website that links to everything and explains a lot of the products that I use, and I will link to a few other videos that kind of explain a little bit of the build process as well. Just to give you guys as many resources as possible if you're looking into building out your own van, especially on a budget. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an open book. I love sharing what I've learned over the last few years of living in my van. And, you know, it's a process. The van is constantly in motion, like literally because I'm driving a lot, but also because I'm moving things around and I'm finding better storage solutions, etc., etc. So your van will probably also constantly be a work in progress. And I mean, that's why it's taken me nearly 2 years to even do a van tour, is because I never felt like it was done. And I still don't. There's still things I want to do, and I'm constantly figuring things out and changing things up. So again, my name is Holly Priestley. Thank you for tuning in to my very first van tour. I hope to bring you more videos that are informative and maybe lightly entertaining. Who knows? If you found value in this video, go ahead and like it. And if you want to see more of what I'm up to, subscribe to my channel and come follow me on all the social medias. I'm pretty much Holly C. Priestley everywhere, and I'm most active on Instagram, so come say hi.